Aperture is an opening that limits the amount of light that can enter a camera through its lens. It is measured in f-stops. Aperture lets in different amounts of light to the sensor based on how small or large it is. The aperture is a component in the lens of a camera. It is measured in f-stops. It affects how much light that gets into the sensor on your camera. It controls what is in focus. It can be controlled on the modes of your camera. On the auto settings, your camera controls the aperture. On manual settings and the aperture priority mode, you control what aperture you want. On the back of your camera, the aperture will show up as an F number. These numbers can be whole or also be shown as a decimal. Why aperture is so confusing is that it's opposite of everything we've ever learned as soon as we started learning how to count. The smaller the number, the larger the aperture opening. The larger the aperture number, the smaller the opening. The smaller the opening, the less light that gets into the sensor, which will also affect the exposure level of your picture. Aperture controls depth of field. Depth of field is the zone of acceptable sharpness or focus within a photograph. The aperture is the function on the camera that allows the photographer to choose what is in focus and what is not. Shallow depth of field means that a smaller area is in focus. Wide or deep depth of field means more of the image is sharp or clear. And medium depth of field is just that, right in the middle of shallow depth of field, medium depth of field, and wide depth of field. So as you can see on the shallow depth of field, the objects closest to the camera are nice and sharp, and as the depth goes further away from the lens, it gets more and more blurry. The opposite of that, wide or deep depth of field, the objects closest to the camera can be blurry, and the objects further away are clear. Now that you know more about aperture, you're ready to try it out. The two best modes for changing aperture is the A mode, or aperture priority mode. Most professional cameras, it is shown as an A or an AV on the mode dial. For this particular setting, you, the photographer, selects the aperture number or the f-stop number, and the camera does the rest. Or you can select the manual mode that is shown by an M on the mode dial. The manual mode allows the photographer to control all functions and features of the camera, not only aperture, but shutter speed, ISO, and white balance as well. If you feel like you're ready to use the manual mode, go for it. Another tip is if you are taking photos in a challenging low light situation, using a tripod is really important. Thanks for watching.